Hello and welcome to Commons Coffee, where we talk with musicians, artists, and singers every week to get to know the people behind the music, the backstage stories. Today's episode we are doing in English because our guest is an Englishman through and through, and his name is John Smit. He's a well-known recording, sound engineer, musician who plays bass and drums. We are diving into John's story behind the scenes and how he came to be the musician and sound engineer that he is well known for today, and looking back a bit on his life thus far. He is one of my personal mentors that I've learned a great deal from and has inspired me. Join along for more musical content each week, and remember to like, subscribe and turn on the notifications if you're on YouTube, or subscribe to the channel if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee and enjoy the conversation with me and John today. Thanks, Master John, for sitting down with me today and having a bit of a chat about the industry and about life and whatever else may pop up.
Absolutely.
While preparing for this, I thought back a little bit to where I first met you, because in Bloom there's this, everybody kind of knows everybody, but I don't think we realize where we met each other always.
Exactly.
And I was trying to think, I knew of you a long while before I actually met you, I realized, because I watched a few Arco shows and so on. That was the first time I ever encountered you and your work that I'm aware of. And then I realized I met you for the first time when I started to work with Arco. I think it was the Arco and Adam show that you did the sound for.
That's right, you were on monitors.
Yeah. And I realized that's almost 10 years ago. Time flies.
10 years, it is.
Time flies. And it's been a long road since, and we've come our long ways. And I officially had class with you and everything. So it was fun. And I think to this day you are one of the biggest mentors that I can fully claim as a mentor.
Sure.
So it's nice for me to have a bit of an official discussion with you about what life is.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in the entertainment industry and so on. But I think to jump back a little bit, where did your journey kind of begin in the music industry with music and so on? Because in Bloom you're kind of well known as the sound guy.
Sound guy, yes.
If you need to do a recording, you call John. But you're also a very talented and gifted musician, drummer, bassist, piano player. I also
keys player,
heard a little bit.
I wouldn't call myself a pianist.
There is especially in Bloom, a bit of a differentiation. But where did your journey begin with music?
Sure, I was 6 years old when my mum strongly suggested that I begin with piano lessons.
Oh, wow.
So that was good. I listened. And I started with that. I took music as a subject at school and went to about grade 5 on piano, which I did complete.
Yes.
And started drums at the age of 12 and bass guitar at the age of 16.
Wow.
Took some lessons in drums and bass and continued with the piano lessons to about grade 7, and then I just kind of withdrew from that.
Okay.
It was a very good foundation, so I'm very happy about that. And then I started playing in bands, did my first semi-professional gig at, I think I was 15.
Wow.
It was a bunch of varsity students. They were studying psychology, and they put a band together, and they needed a drummer, so I just hooked up with them and we did a couple of shows.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun, but that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah.
And
Wow, that's amazing. And you continued on with your musical journey for a long while, and I remember something I remember now from your biography is that you also went to dienstplig.
Yeah,
or what,
national service.
National service, yeah, it's
Military.
English. Oh, fantastic.
That's right.
How was that experience, especially with the music and so on? Because that's kind of a different era that I don't think we always know about.
It was.
There was space for someone who's more musically inclined than
That's right.
gaan sterf op die grens vibes.
Exactly.
So how was that experience for you?
Well, what actually happened was I was a truck driver, believe it or not. They called it
wow.
echelon driver. So these big Samel
Yes.
50 and 100 and whatever those trucks, troop transporter.
Yeah.
But I had a friend who knew our lieutenant in the base. So we used to get a weekend pass
Yeah.
to go home once a month. So he came and paid my lieutenant a visit and said, could we split the weekend pass into 21 hours per weekend so he can come and jam with us in a night type of a nightclub
Yeah.
vibe. So that's
wow.
what my army life actually consisted out of after the
wow.
basic training.
That's
Weekends I'd
fantastic.
be playing in
Yeah.
places and that kind of thing.
Wow.
And then driving trucks.
Yeah, no, travel is a big part of the army.
Yes.
And then after basic training, after military time, did you go on to study? How did your
Yeah.
music career develop from there?
After that, I went to Pretoria Technikon. The plan was to complete the diploma courses in jazz.
Okay.
Drums was my first subject or main subject. And then ear training and sound engineering and what they called keyboard technique.
Yeah.
But due to finances, I eventually withdrew. So I could not complete that, unfortunately. And then I had sort of a decision to make. Am I going to try the entrepreneurial type of approach or the formal education kind of approach?
Yeah.
And I'd actually just gotten home after that, about a year of study, and I got a phone call from a guy in Klerksdorp. And he said, I'm starting up a studio. I hear you back in Bloem. Do you feel like trying it out? So I said, yes. And that was it. Went to Klerksdorp, started working in the studio, really thrown in the deep end with the old reel-to-reel Tascam machines.
Wow. Yeah, that was a few eras ago.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a long time ago. But I mean, that's fantastic. And that you immediately got immersed in the studio space and so on.
Exactly.
Was that kind of the moment you knew this is the industry you want to go in? This is what I'm doing with my life? Or did you have a moment like that? Because,
You know, it's interesting that you ask. I sort of from the age of 12, 13, I knew music is the thing.
Yeah.
But my brother, who is super passionate about music and sound, he's got a very sensitive hearing. He actually one day took me and said, look, here's a hi-fi. This is bass, this is mid-range, and this is treble. And he said, can you hear the difference? And that sort of just sparked something.
Oh, wow.
The ability to actually mold and shape sound.
Yeah.
That kind of just clicked somewhere in my head. And and then obviously music, which is sound, and the ability to manipulate and process. It kind of started there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mention it in that way. I remember while I was studying, I was having a conversation with, I think it's Leon at the Dayon.
Oh, yeah.
We love to have arguments sometimes about stupid things.
Yeah.
But the one thing that came up, which I'm really passionate about, is the music training for a sound engineer.
Oh, yeah.
Or a musical background in some sense. It doesn't have to be formal tertiary education training or so on. But I think there is some benefits to a sound engineer actually having some musical training.
Definitely.
Especially when working in the music field as a producer, as a mixing and mastering engineer, or as a live sound engineer for music.
Definitely.
Just from my own experience, I think there's a much deeper understanding of what music is and how it functions and flows when you have that training, and then how to go about working with that in a sound environment. Because you also have best of both worlds. As
It
you're
is
sitting
sort of
there.
a blessing. It really is.
Yeah. So how do you think it influences a sound engineer to have a form of musical background or training or experience?
I think the approach is different. I think one is not necessarily going to approach purely based on auditory senses, if I can put it that way. You're going to sort of be going with almost an instinctive approach added to the audio or the sound.
Yeah.
And that instinct is largely based on perhaps a broader understanding of different timbres of different instruments. So it becomes less of a guessing game.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more of a, I don't want to say, or with any disrespect to sound engineers that don't play instruments, but there is a little bit of a deeper understanding and a sort of a predictability. And then also the understanding of different genres, the merger of different genres, the purist form, etc. It definitely is an advantage in some ways. However, I have to say the guys that are not necessarily instrumentalists or musicians or even singers, but they really focus on the sound and the processes of that and the complexities of that. They are creative in a different way because they're sort of really delving into the auditory senses and that kind of thing, that field.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to have a bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. You're also highlighting something which I didn't think about is the on the other side of the spectrum, people that doesn't necessarily come from a musical background that works with the physics of sound, if I can put it more like that, and the overall experience, which I think is something that someone that's not from a musical background can bring to the table as well, where if you have a musical brain, if I can put it like that, you can't disconnect from that always.
That's very true.
Which is very interesting. I remember we did a recording recently for the Odeon, and it was high modern classical music where you did
almost
the audio.
Abstract.
Almost abstract, yeah. Where you did the audio and I did the video. And while editing, I was thinking through the process of writing the music and having studied that style for like a semester, what goes into writing that I think plays a big role, where someone else would focus more on the experience that the listener or the audience member would hear more than what goes into writing the music and what the composer might have wanted or the songwriter might have wanted. So I think there's an interesting, I don't want to say contrast, but a flip of a coin.
Definitely.
That both sides of sound engineering, both types of sound engineers can bring to the table. But to go back a little bit to your story, you moved to Klerksdorp, and if I remember correctly, it's AVA Studios that you joined back then?
Audio-visual advertising,
Oh, wow. Are they still in practice? Are they still open?
No, not as far as I know.
Okay.
But it was an individual that basically started up a studio and a publishing house. And I came in and thrown in the deep end. My very first album was actually a Kwaito album, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Around what time was that, if I can ask?
It would have been 1994.
Wow.
Yes, 94, June.
That's amazing.
July.
And how was the studio experience, walking in for the first time, sitting behind a desk, because you had like miles of desk in front of you and racks and racks of processors and compressors and plugins and everything. How did you experience it?
I did have some experience sort of from a young age working with mixing desks and doing live sound, from little bands, be it in a church band or just a bunch of young teenagers getting together and jamming up. My brother and myself used to also just make music together. But this was a nice experience. It was the reel to reel. There was almost it's sort of a romantic element to it, if I can put it that way. The actual devices, the machines, the mechanics, the old analog mixing desks, we'd have a timeline, have physical written down notes of how we're going to do the mix while in real time recording to the master. But that was a very nice time. In terms of very tangible and connected sort of to the essence of the mechanics and the analog. It was almost almost like an entity or a person that you're working with.
Yeah, which I think in today's time, I think it was with you, I had this talk a while back at a gig just about how the shift from analog to digital kind of removed something from audio and the tactile response that you get from a console and from physically turning the knobs and changing things and like the feeling of adjusting something and then hearing the results of that.
Yeah.
I think, which is something interesting that kind of got removed because we're all touch screens now and computers and
or click.
Exactly. If you have a mouse and a decent computer, then you can produce anything in the world.
And presets.
And presets. I think that's a scary one.
Yeah.
I watched a video the other day of a relatively new Waves plugin that came out that is an AI EQ. So you plug it into the channel and you say analyze, and it picks up what instrument or type of vocal it is. It gives you different EQ presets that you can work around with, and then you just set it and leave it, and I think you can say it to be a dynamic EQ as well. So you kind of have a bit of compression also built into that. So you plug this in, it's in the matter of I think like 2 minutes that you can mix this entire channel, and then you can do that for all your channels, and then
boom, boom, boom.
It's like half an hour. You have a completely
exactly, and it sounds good.
It sounds fantastic, and I think that's something that has developed so much over the years. When we went to digital, the development didn't start; it continued. I think because I mean all the great tracks and all the great albums out there from previous years were analog mixes and analog approaches to mixing something. I remember watching a documentary about, I think it was the Bohemian Rhapsody recording that Queen did, where they had, I think it was 8-track recorder.
And that's it.
And they had to lay, and then you had to compress everything down, the 8 channels down, and then you need to draw it back in, and then you have 7 channels to record again.
Exactly.
And so those mixing choices were set. You couldn't go back and update everything, which is a great luxury we have today.
It is.
And having a computer to do so much for you, it's amazing. But
it really is.
The studio, I think, still needs to be kind of a romantic place because, I mean, as you said now, just the essence of what you got when you walked into a studio like that, it's a completely different vibe.
Exactly.
Than walking into a small booth today in the bedroom producer, the mattress is there, sound isolation. It's a completely different vibe you get. And I think that's something that still in today's time is kind of nice to have sometimes. And to if you get the opportunity to record in a studio, it's a luxury these days.
It is.
But apart from the studio, you said they did publishing as well, which kind of ties into what the studio was back then.
It was, exactly. They tried to cover as many elements as possible.
Yeah. I mean, what was the industry like back then, circa 1994, 1990?
Sure, that was sort of quite a major shift. The whole new regime that came in and so on. I think, in a nutshell, it was very much sort of an explosion of freedom, ironically enough, sort of. The freedom also in terms of sound and motive and message. So the sound was very much, there would, for instance, be certain cultural norms that had developed. For instance, distortion or overdrive from, for instance, a little radio. And that was right. And one would then incorporate that sound, for instance, into the vocals and purposefully overdrive the vocals. Get a little bit of that distortion sound, which worked well in Kwaito. And it was really an explosion of ideas and concepts, mergers of different genres, different colors of sound. It was really an explosion. Yeah,
because I mean, it's around 1994. It was the end of apartheid, and I mean, the entire industry in South Africa kind of opened up.
It just opened up. There was a
I mean, that's amazing. And if you listen to the music of the time, you can also kind of hear the changes that there was. And I read an article last year that kind of developed the idea of using old albums and recorded music and what the recording style and the method of mixing and so on kind of says about the era in and of itself.
Definitely.
I'm thinking about something as simple as gated reverb, which I think that was the sound of the 1980s.
It was. Snare drum.
Yeah, it's like and I think especially around the 1994 era, where apartheid ended and it was just this coming together and culmination of different sounds.
Definitely.
I think being a fly on the wall in a recording space back then must have been amazing.
It was a creative space, very creative concepts, ideas, and I don't want to use the word suppression, but when one has a certain freedom, then the creativity flows, and then almost it's sort of open game. You can just select whatever and start designing sounds, building, generating all sorts of samples.
Yeah.
It was really an explosive time.
I can imagine it was just open season where everybody came together and let's see how we can collaborate on this and bring it together.
Yeah.
And also new things that come out of it, like you said, even just as simple as the styles of mixing,
Yes.
which I think is amazing. On that note, I kind of thought of a question now, which I kind of want to throw to you. I recently had a discussion with Werner from the Bloemfontein's Children's Choir as well. And we talked a bit about how the choir sound has changed in the past 10, 15 years, and especially in South Africa with the various areas of choir music that kind of culminates and South African choirs being strong in various areas.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking now choir music, the physical recording and mixing of choir music has also changed quite a lot in recent years.
For sure.
I remember reading books when I was still studying about how you should keep the choir as natural as possible, and you would just do like a stereo pair miking and so on. And now there's all these new theories about how to mic a choir and how to get a different sound from the choir. And obviously with a choir, the setup kind of determines how you would record it these days. But the recorded sound of a choir is much bigger than it was in previous years. It's not just this low blend of colors, if I can put it like that. It's a power behind a choir.
There's more presence.
Yes.
I mean, the old style of choir recording was you have the mass of different timbres or voices, and that is sort of the conglomeration that brings about the sound. And now people are literally designing the sound of a choir. Which is great, and bringing in all sorts of different options. But like you say, generally it's more presence, it's bigger, it's bolder. It's not sort of distant over there. It's really a close-up experience.
Yeah.
You're almost standing in and amongst the choir.
Yeah, that's actually a really good description, because thinking back to when I still sang choir, it was this immersive experience.
Yes, an immersive experience, exactly.
You still you get that kind of now with recordings and so on. I'm also thinking now orchestra music has kind of done the same thing in a sense. Like it's become a lot more bold and present.
It has. I think probably if you look at the music and film industry, I think at least 60% of the orchestral scores are samples.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that means that they have a variety of different mic placements, different mic settings, and all sorts of, from the EQs to everything.
Yeah.
So the variety, as opposed to just one setup orchestra.
Yeah.
I have all these different options. And it definitely does shape. You can shape and change the orchestra as you wish. It's really amazing.
Yeah, no, it's an entire new era that it's been around for a while, but I think, and especially thinking like one of the biggest film composers at the moment, Hans Zimmer, his sound, just his brass sounds that he gets. If you think I want to go Batman immediately, or something along those lines, or even Pirates of the Caribbean, which is some of his older work.
Yeah.
Just the presence that there is in the brass section, it feels like you are sitting, as a percussionist, I know that feeling of sitting next to a trombone player that almost hits you with the slide, and then the sound hits you. And just that experience, it's like you're there. It's like you're
almost like
in the middle of the action.
A lot of the sound engineers having a good musical foundation at the very least.
Yeah.
It's a little less of the audience experience.
Yeah.
It's becoming more kind of a better blend, not better, but more of a blend between the performer and the audience perspective.
Yeah.
Just bringing the two together.
Which I also realize the first proof listeners to any recording is the performer.
Yes.
And I mean, often it's the sound guy as well that, if they're referencing in the studio how it's sounding live and so on, and then you go out to the booth, let's say, for example, you have that sound kind of in your head.
Exactly.
So, and then you and the musician sit and listen together, or you and the conductor, and they want this like in your face sound, which is amazing.
It is. It's almost sound designed to represent something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A whole new era. A whole new
But
era.
It's actually very exciting.
Yeah. And I think the nice thing for me, what I'm seeing in the music industry in general, is not a decline of live instruments, if I can put it like that. Because I remember a while back, people were very afraid that instrumentalists and musicians are going to become obsolete, and you're just going to have like doors that's running
automated, done, algorithm finished.
Yeah, that's really kind of not the case. And there's a lot of live musicians. I'm thinking specifically about someone local now, Petrus, who does a lot of his work just on his guitar. And of course, he has plugins to play piano with. It makes his guitar sound like a piano.
Yeah.
But he also prefers like a lot of the live sound elements as well. Because, I mean, certain instruments just sound better live. So yeah, it's interesting for me to see where
I think it's an add-on, and perhaps even a merger, and that's okay. It's a tool. For now, it's a tool.
Yeah.
Unless it becomes conscious. But anyway,
let's give AI like 5 years.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I don't think it's something the advertising industry, from radio adverts, that kind of thing. Yes, there's a bit of a thing going on. Obviously, orchestras being replaced to some extent.
Yeah.
But I agree with you largely that it is an additive more than a threat.
So going back to your own musical experiences, but you said you like jazz, or you play jazz a bit, and you dive into that kind of. And I think that's the most I've seen you play as well live was with a jazz ensemble. So what is it about jazz, and what type of jazz? Let's also clarify that, because we can have from Muzak all the way through to African American jazz to South African jazz.
Big band, some bebop. I'd say sort of the era 1920s to 60s jazz, where what jazz does for me in a certain sense is it sort of highlights the motion of music. All the different genres, there's always motion, obviously, but jazz seems to kind of shine a spotlight on the motion, and it gets you going. It's got that feel and a vibe. One can obviously dissect it and analyze it, but generally speaking, it's just a type of a vibe and a sense that you feel. Well, that I do anyway.
As a drummer and a bassist, I think that you're like the driving section behind the bass.
Exactly, that's very true. And I see the two as one entity.
Yeah,
drums and bass. I can't really separate the two.
Yeah, which I mean makes sense. You need to. You're the foundation in both those roles. You bring the bass, the bassist.
It's all about that bass.
Thank you, Megan. You bring that foundation to jazz, which I mean, all the other musicians can then build on, but without that foundation, it just falls apart. And I must say that era of jazz you highlighted was kind of like the classic jazz canon, if I can put it like that, which, I mean, there's a lot of good jazz that came out of that time. If I think of the jazz greats, that is the era we're referring to. We're looking at Duke Ellington, Count Basie, those types of people. And then if we bring it to a bit of a South African context, who are some of the best and biggest jazz musicians you've worked with, and that you enjoyed, and who comes to mind especially?
The name. I've worked with jazz. Well, I have to say Noel Stockton. He's a real legend that just sort of came. I had the privilege of working with him for 15, 16 years.
Wow.
And we had a little ensemble, Dave Hart and Pieter de Wet, and we do gigs all over the place. And we also had top brass, that was nice, a full brass section.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And you just hear this brass section behind you. It's incredible. It just, and
beautiful.
Big band, and that was really amazing. Noel taught me a lot. He was really one of my mentors.
That's amazing. And Noel has a really big name in South Africa.
Yeah.
Like when you think Noel Stockton, there's a lot of music that comes to mind immediately. But what was one of the lessons you can think about now that Noel taught you that you would always keep with you, be it in music, life philosophy, anything?
Awareness, summed up in a nutshell.
Why?
Real awareness. So
Yeah.
it's a continuous attempt to be aware of your surroundings through observation.
Yeah.
And obviously we have certain sensory tools, and also processing awareness, because we obviously don't hear with our ears. We hear with our brains, and that's where the processing lies. So awareness is what Noel taught me in a nutshell. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and aware of the
amazing.
players around you,
Yeah.
aware of the internal tempo, yeah,
But I think
and
that
tuning,
oh,
even as a
please.
drummer.
Yeah, oh no, definitely. Well, I mean, it's a big thing. People don't always realize that toms need to be tuned
Yes.
sometimes. But yeah, I think that's also a good philosophy, not just for like in music, but in life as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the, not to get too music educational now, but I think that's one of the big things that music can teach someone who actively participates in music and
Exactly.
learning music. And that's why I think engaging with a group of musicians, be it in an orchestra, in a quartet or a jazz band,
Yeah.
or just your normal run-of-the-mill garage band,
Exactly.
just to learn that awareness, because
Yeah.
it stretches beyond just the music you make.
Precisely. I mean, if someone, for instance, begins, say, piano lessons, all that they actually are, obviously with some level of natural gifting.
Yeah.
To some degree, I can dream of being a rugby player, but it's just not going to happen. But yeah, but that's also debatable. Yeah, but all that one's actually doing is you're just extending and broadening the awareness through training, through repetition, etc., etc. And so the awareness grows, and eventually they become proficient, and then the gift becomes a talent, and the talent becomes a skill, and hopefully eventually a craft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that is just to continue what you said. Now, I think that's something you have perfected as you are sitting here now in both music and audio. It's a craft for you, and
I hope so.
it's a every time that I've worked with you, it's not just about getting the track to the client. It's
Yeah.
not just the job needs to be finished or a gig needs to be handled. If anybody has ever sat in a recording space with you, they know that John brings a level of care and calmness around. I spoke to one of the clients you referred to me for a live show, and she told me that John brings this calmness to any space, which I think also speaks to your approach to what you do in sound and in music. It's an awareness of what you are creating, if I can put it like that.
True.
Because it's not just a product that goes on a
Absolutely.
shelf.
Yes.
It's art. It's something that transcends where we
For
are
sure.
right now. And especially with the recordings,
Yeah,
those things will live on forever.
exactly.
If time and space and Elon Musk allows.
And we store it on a crystal for 13 billion years. Yes.
Exactly. So it can go into eternity.
Yeah.
And you handle it and approach it with that level of intensity, if I can put it like that. Not necessarily intense,
Yeah,
but
integrity or attempting integrity. Yeah.
yes. And that's really something I'm still striving towards, because you get those gigs sometimes where it's just like
Just want to get this over and done
another
with.
one, yeah. But handling it like that for every artist, because every artist brings something to the table, and I think especially in Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
If we fall into that vibe of, this is just not a job, it's just another performance that we need to handle.
Yeah.
I need to get this so I can get paid, so I can pay that. That kind of takes away from what we are creating. And
Exactly.
I haven't experienced it a lot in Bloemfontein, but there is sometimes a disregard of the love and the craft
I
that
agree with you.
goes into sound, that goes into making music.
Yeah.
Which, I think you bring something big of that to the table.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's for me, it's very purpose driven to like you said, attempt to keep that integrity of the very small, which in my mind is as large as the very large, and vice versa. It's a space of vulnerability for the performer.
Yeah.
Whether they feel they're strong or not, for whatever motivation they might have. It could be fame, it could be music, it could be money, it could, whatever that motivation is, there's still a certain vulnerability that they bring. And I kind of find it as my job description, or part of it, to attempt to extract the very best performance, also very, who knows,
Yeah.
but to extract the most comfortable performance that the performer feels most comfortable with, which usually is the best.
Yeah.
If they feel comfortable with what they gave.
I think today's time we can quickly get in the mindset of, okay, we need to capture it, we need to go on, and we need to do the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's not anybody's fault necessarily.
Yeah.
It's just the fast-paced society and industry.
Exactly.
Because things have gotten to such a fast-paced and quick turnover setup that it's difficult sometimes to get to a space to create something with integrity. I like the way you put it. I'm thinking especially like social media now. It's not a long-lasting space. It's not a integral space, if I can put it like that.
I agree. Yeah.
There's content creators out there, which is amazing producers and performers and so on. And they spent weeks perfecting this one video with perfect audio, and then someone looks at it for 15 seconds on their phone with crappy audio and they swipe away, and that's it.
People have got a very short memory, generally speaking.
Yeah.
They just forget. What's news today is really just bygone.
It just blows over. So I think the integrity part we need to kind of keep and bring back in some spaces in music, because it's not just about getting stuff out there. It's about creating something that outlives us. If I die one day and my kids find my collection of old recordings and orchestra performances somehow, and if they find that, I want them to say, wow, this is something I want to put out there. This is something I want to...
And it's still exactly the same vein, music, which in a certain sense is an entity. I don't want to philosophize too much, but
go for it.
It's almost a living, breathing entity to me personally, which each person can extract from and sort of partake in and share. But it's tremendously diverse, and I think that's what keeps me interested and has kept me interested for so many years. And
it's never standing still, which I think is also good. Yes. Yeah, but not too fast.
Not too fast.
In that same vein, what is a recording or performance somewhere in the history of all that you've done? Because I mean, you average a lot of recordings and performances a year. What is one or two or a session or something that stands out for you in your career in the past? Yeah. From the past.
Sure, that is a very difficult question to answer. Based on what we've been speaking about, that the small holds almost as much, not almost, in my mind, as much as the large in human terms. That's very close to impossible for me to give you sort of a definite answer. I have to say, I think it's a conglomeration of all the experiences that I've had that sort of ends up being one large occurrence or event. So I can say, okay, the past 30 years, 94, it's 29 years now, is essentially for me, it's just one event with multiple little highlighted areas. So I'm trying to think of, I can say people that had an impact on me and somehow caused me to grow or develop would be people like Noel Stockton. And there have been quite, Tsietsi Mafabatu was another guy. Okay. He taught me all about what they call clap and tap choirs. It's traditional choirs.
Oh, wow.
And the methodology to actually capture and record and maintain the cultural impact without losing that purity. and then also a whole merge of things. So, in a certain sense, everything kind of stands out. It's literally one big event for me, the whole bunch.
Wow.
I've been very blessed in a sense to have experienced all of these things. There's tremendous diversity and people and experiences, and it's really been a wonderful walk.
Yeah, and I mean it aligns with the integrity approach that you also have.
I hope
because
so. Yeah,
it's not. There's no big or small shows. There's no big or small recordings. It's just the amount of effort you put into something sometimes.
Yes.
I remember saying that Jeremy Ortali used to do lighting at Packoffs. He used to tell me, I grew up with him when my parents were rehearsing orchestra and so on, and my father would dump me at Jeremy and say, watch him. And then I was sitting there behind the lighting console, twiddling my thumbs and looking at the shows and so on. They're busy rehearsing.
And just absorbing.
Yeah, the same vibe as the romantic studio setup. Theatre was that for me as well. Walking into the sun and this then more colossal space even than it is now, because I mean I've grown a little bit.
Space has become smaller.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'm just never mind. But seeing this big space, and something that Jeremy always said was, every light is important, every show, and that meant a lot from him coming back then, especially back then, because he was working in the Saint Plessis Theatre that had, I think it was 400 to 500 generic lights built in, and then additional 20, 30, 40 extra lights that was rigged in per show in different configurations and so on.
Serious theatre.
So for a man keeping watch over almost 550-ish lights per show, to say every light is important, every show, that just highlights for me the passion and impact with which someone approaches every show, first of all, and the depth of value. The depth of value that is put into every show. And I think that's the feeling I got when you said now that every project, every performance, every recording was important. And in some sense, there's no specific one that takes principle over the other.
Exactly.
And I think it's the same concept. Every track is important for every recording. Every snare hit is important. Every bass note is important for every show. That's just amazing for me, the depth with which you approach the music, because it really brings honor to
I have to
what
respect
it is.
the music. It's one of those things, very few things, that is really for free. Air is currently at least for free.
For now.
Sunlight, we hope for quite some time, will be free.
While it's still there.
Yes. But music is literally just floating all and around and amongst us. We literally just extract. And I am guilty. Sometimes I do choose the shortcuts when time is pressing. And then you have kind of a recipe, and I apply the recipe, but at least it's a recipe with a certain amount of integrity trying.
I mean, having a recipe for something I also don't think is wrong, because I mean, especially with the experience that you have, there's this thing that works. That you know works for the specific style of, let's say, vocal on this mic in this genre. You know what works because you've incorporated it so many times and you've tweaked and refined your approach to something. It's like a chef making buttered chicken at home. They know what works. It may be basic, but it works great. If you were to start over now, like you're 18 years, you just finished school, you don't have to go to the army. Where are you heading? What are you doing? If you were to start all over again now, knowing what you know now, and
I would have hoped for more awareness. In a nutshell. Again, nutshell. Yes.
Is it because
I was a little naive in certain areas? As we all probably are to some extent.
I'm realizing now music was probably not the best degree logistically to survive in this world at the ripe old age of 26. But I get what you're saying.
A little more awareness and less naivety. on the one hand, that's also okay. Growing up in the family or setup that I did, it was sort of kind of closed off in certain respects. And then I suppose the influences that I had was relatively limited. My brother played quite a large role in my life. Okay. He, being 4 years older, he did introduce me to a whole lot of things, especially music from Gary Moore to Koinonia to Dream Theatre, David Meese, those type of guys.
Yeah.
And I also have a love for rock, so it's kind of interesting, rock and jazz, but I do appreciate pretty much all types of music.
Yeah. Speaking of family, what was the impact of your family? Because I grew up in a very musical household, but my parents also divorced when I was very young, and I kind of had music from both sides.
Yeah.
So there was no chance for me. But what was your experience growing up? What was the impact of your family and your household growing up?
My mom, well, also music from both sides, but my mom being more of a, could I say, a free-thinking person.
Okay.
Her parents played violin, piano, flute.
Wow.
They sang. My dad's side, his dad again was a singer too, baritone. And so there was a lot of music, always classical music playing in the house.
Yeah.
And then obviously some pan flute music too.
I mean, just to calm down a little
just
bit.
to calm down. But there was always music. My dad was very work focused, if I can put it that way, and my mom was very home focused, children focused. So there was quite a wonderful impact there. She played a big role in my life, and like I said earlier, kindly requested that I start some form of music training.
Yeah.
Formal music training, which really did lay a foundation.
You mentioned your brother was also played a big role in your life, and still do, I assume.
Yeah, I know.
And
sure.
I mean, 4 years older, the brother sees the world before you, experiences life before you. How did he play a role to kind of guide you also into music and just assisted in your development of life philosophy and where you are in life? Like, what was the role your brother played in that sense?
I think he was sort of the foreseer, if it makes sense, to my life, sort of linked to what he would have hoped his life could have been, because he's passionate about music, but he's in electronics, and that's what he studied. That's his field.
Yeah.
Light currents. So it's very fine. He always used to build guitar amps and speaker rack systems and all sorts of things, and he'd always involve me, like with the bass, the mid-range, and treble. Just open up my world. You can actually mold and change the way something sounds. It sounds so simplistic now, but then it was a real eye-opener to me.
Yeah.
And he was always very supportive. He always, would just say, "Do it. Do you enjoy what you're doing? Yes. Well, then do it." And it sounds so simplistic, but it was so supportive.
I think for someone who's young and still developing and living in a time where your life vision or your worldview can sometimes be heavily impacted by a lot of things outside, having a brother who can also be a mentor in that space plays a big role in how you approach life, how you develop your view in life. And I mean, in general, you're a very calm person. You're very chilled, and for the most part, I haven't really seen the other side of you. What job did your mother do, if I may ask?
She was first what's the Afrikaans woord, 'n dominee se vrou. What would the English be for that? Now it's going to slip my mind. A minister's wife.
Minister's wife,
yes. Later on, she studied anthropology because she had a big interest in cultures.
Yeah.
And she then worked for the National Museum and wrote a few books on, different cultures and the blankets that the Southern Sotho people would wear, for instance, and that kind of thing. And she played piano, and she really encouraged me, and she'd sort of encourage me by asking me questions, as opposed to instructing me, almost sort of allowing, on the one hand, again, it's very debatable, but allowing her sons to sort of teach her what type of parent to be, which would be beneficial to them. It's not cut in stone. Obviously, there are boundaries and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of openness. She gave a lot of openness for us to discover ourselves and to burn our fingers.
Yeah, I mean that's part of growing up is the falling and learning how to stand up again. And how do you think that shaped your view of working with people and so on? Because this industry is all about people.
It's all about people.
You interact with a lot of people on a daily basis. So how do you think that shaped your approach to that?
You spoke about calm, or me being calm. I am generally a calm person. Obviously, I do have my flip side, which most people do.
Yeah.
Usually just boundaries that are set, and one might feel certain boundaries have been overstepped or misunderstood, vice versa, based on value systems. But generally, I think every person, knowingly aware or not, subconsciously perhaps, does have some form of value system. Yeah. Or a set of values, not necessarily moral values, but just that which is important or valuable to them. And I think that my mom's way and my brother's guidance as well sort of did shape me in that way to at least attempt to be as aware as possible of each individual's value system or boundary lines that they hold to themselves. So that's sort of my approach, and that kind of bleeds into the music, where every little element has value.
Exactly, and I think that it's interesting, the holistic approach or philosophy, if I can put it like that, where every person has their own being, their own life.
Absolutely.
And I mean, same in music. Each song, each recording, each track has its own life, its own context, its own story behind it, which plays a role in the bigger picture and in the small intimate moments.
Exactly.
And I kind of like that. I like the approach of, everybody has their own space.
Yes.
Everybody has their own life, their own things they're going through. We talked a bit earlier about the word sonder that I discovered. The realization that every person has a life as vivid and
almost complex.
Yeah, complex as you do yourself. And it's difficult to see that sometimes, because especially today in society, with my generation and younger, we are very much, I kind of want to say, bred into this individuality mindset of my life's important, my life has meaning, my life is almost like main character syndrome, if I can put it like that. And we forget sometimes the impact of our actions and our approaches to the people around us and the world around us, and in the bigger context, other people's actions and their complexities that have an impact on life.
Very true.
So I really much like the approach. It's not just calmness, it's understanding the depth that there is within each person. And everybody has something that's important for them. In music, it's our job to respect that and to work with that. And I think in orchestra, it's one of the biggest things I also learned when I was playing youth orchestra. We would sit, and percussion would sometimes play one note an entire 10
or a triangle.
We had to lug everything down, and that's the biggest teacher of patience, I feel, because you have this entire thing to carry down, and then you play 5 notes where the piccolo or flutist they have their small bag, and then they play the entire song.
Yes.
But just learning that every part is important.
For sure.
And every part has meaning.
Yeah. I was a little naughty. I played for the youth orchestra for a very brief time. Played bass drum, and I was asked to leave because I made up my own rhythms. I really gave it my best.
I mean, it's fine. If they didn't supply the sheet music, then it's fine. It's on them, I feel. Oh, goodness. The musician lifestyle is a bit of a interesting setup sometimes. I know a lot of people who travel around a lot, who work a lot. And for me, myself, my work is my passion. It's what I do. It's what I've put a lot of my energy into. And I forget sometimes that part of why we do what we do is so that we can go home as well and live and support. And you have a daughter that I think she's a bit younger than me.
25.
Yeah. Who's also working now and so on. But what was the home experience like with the job, with doing gigs and doing recordings and doing live sound, doing studio work, doing all this? Because hustle culture is a thing in this industry. You need to make it work for you.
It very is.
But how was the experience for you to go home after all this every day? And through the years, what was the home experience like, if I can put it like that?
Initially, when I started up my recording studio in 1998,
wow,
we had been married for about 2.5 years. So yes, it was not only that it was in the music industry, but it was the start of a new business.
Yeah.
And all the complexities that come with that and the time consumption. So initially it did put quite a lot of strain. And then we sort of drew up boundaries.
Yeah.
And that actually worked for a period of time.
Yeah.
Then my daughter was born, and then obviously, her mom at that point then did not work, and she was delving. Her mom was a wonderful artist as well. So poor Gina, a musician for a dad, an artist as a mom. I mean, shame for a child.
The artisan streak is there.
Yes. But even though the boundaries were set, there were some differences that were just could not be overcome. So in that case, it was not necessarily... there was a band that I was playing in at one point that I eventually withdrew just to make more time for home. But eventually it did not work out. But it is very true what you say. Coming home is incredibly important. I am very passionate. I have been passionate for all these years. I love what I do and the interaction, but one has to make space. Again, it also largely depends, I think, on the driving force. If pure fame and pure ego is what one is chasing, then it becomes perhaps a little questionable as to, is music truly being treated with integrity and respect or not? Is it really about the person or not? And all the things that flow out of that.
It's difficult sometimes, I think, especially for someone who's more artistically inclined, to put a differentiation between this is my job and this is my home that I need to go home to, and the one is to support the other. Where, especially if you're passionate about something, it's part of who you are. It's part of your life. It's part of what you take home. It's part of what you bring to work. It's part of what you go to the bathroom with, even, if I can put it like that.
It literally follows you everywhere.
It literally, and I think to build a quote-unquote stereotypical life, or the white picket fence dream, as the Americans would put it, to build that through one's passion, it can be a bit daunting sometimes.
I think it does help if there's one stable stable. In terms of income, I have seen and I know of quite a few people where, for instance, the one will have a full-time job and be in support of. They do even still have boundaries to protect, the structure. But two artists together or two creatives together, that might not be the easiest, but it could, on the other hand, be very easy. It really, or easier. It really depends. But it's true what you say. It's really part of an individual. You can't run.
No. And I think if we have a context where it's two artists or artistic types that get together, boundaries, first of all, you mentioned it earlier, I think is a good thing to keep in place, but also in a sense where it can work is where there's a big mutual understanding and creating a setup in a house that can be functional in that sense going forward, that one doesn't have to get a day job and just, as you said, be stable and so on. If both want to continue practicing their arts, there needs to be a lot more freedom than I think the typical setup can provide sometimes. And to put it bluntly as well, it needs to be lucrative enough that
It does.
that sense can be there. Because
Yeah.
I mean, just being two people in a house and running a household together takes money, and
does.
if kids come into the picture as well, that's a lot more money as well.
Yeah.
And if you're in the arts, babysitters then come into play, or if you're lucky enough to have family to keep an eye over the kids,
Exactly.
because I mean it takes a village.
Yes.
But there's a lot of financial factors that also come into play, and I think managing one's finances in such a way, it's a big learning curve, I must also say, because you don't get a salary.
Yeah.
You get income as you work, and then you need to learn to manage that and
That's
run your
right.
company.
I have to say, when I sort of took the decision I'm going to plow into this, I absorbed information because that was the only way I could gain it,
Yeah.
not taking the academic route. I had to decide and realize there were going to be some sacrifices, and especially, how my lifestyle and that kind of thing, and attempting to keep things as simplistic in certain areas as possible, at least in the beginning. But it does flow up and down. And I do think value systems definitely play a big role. Because if it's shared value systems, or at least the majority thereof, or sufficient of that,
Yeah.
then
And
it becomes workable.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not to say that it'll be perfect if you do that. Then I mean, people change, and your art changes according
Art
to your
changes.
person. So that also plays a role. So yeah, I think getting relations in order in the space that we are in it's more difficult.
I agree.
So,
It is.
I remember speaking to one of the other live sound engineers the other day in Bloem, and he also just highlighted how busy they are. And I mean, it's touring life, and
Yes.
he has a dog at home which he barely sees.
Yeah.
So for someone like that to also get into a position where he's in a relationship, he's getting married, he can live the home life as well as the event life.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult equilibrium
is.
to reach, and it's not said it'll be stable, because
Yeah.
the industry takes a dip, and you need to do more work
Exactly.
to compensate income, or vice versa.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. On the one hand, it's easy to say, at least theoretically. Well, okay, in terms of relationships, my personal belief is that it's all about freedom. Freedom to express, freedom to be. But if two people are simply just incompatible, there is just sometimes a line that has to be drawn. That even if, for instance, there is a very busy lifestyle on the one hand, or both, I think it is workable, though, depending again on a whole long list of detailed aspects.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's doable, but it is more difficult. I think so.
Yeah, it really takes a lot of work, and I must say, in my relationship right now, it's something that gave me a lot more appreciation for the togetherness in the relationship sometimes, because you actively need to work to find those spaces to be together sometimes. For example, I'm recording today, and he's working night shift tonight, so we're seeing each other tomorrow.
Exactly.
Again. And just actively find spaces to be with each other is sometimes one of the most difficult things you can do. I think if we went a few decades back, and we had, you could be a studio engineer, you worked from 9 to 5, you did what needed to be done, and then you went home. That was a easier time, but
It was.
I think society has shifted so that the music industry needed to adapt, and we kind of come back to this hustle culture thing.
Yeah. A pace change took place.
Yes. You need to do more than one thing a day sometimes, just to survive.
I'm a secretary, I'm an administrative officer, I'm an executive storehouse person. I'm a marketer, do the job.
Something I'm having a lot more conversations about is the development of sound engineering and guys working in the audio industry as like an art form, and a very specialized type of job that needs to happen. It often comes up along with like the wages and pay discussions and so on. But I kind of want to hear your take on this thing of, sound, live, especially in live sound. Live sound, guys, is a specialized art form that is contracted to do a specific job, and there is a price coupled with that. There is a fee that needs to be considered with that, and you can't pay someone less for that, because becoming a sound engineer these days requires a lot. You need networking knowledge. You need the knowledge of how to do audio, and you need to know how to work with people. You need to know the gear, the multitudes of gear that there is out there. It's all these things that is very specialized and very broad at the same time. And then you need to be a good enough rigger or stagehand to do the setups and strikes as well.
Yeah.
And it's a very specialized type of art form that has developed into the industry that it is now, or the job that it is now. And I would kind of like to hear your take on it. Obviously a bit biased, but
that's fine.
Just about this thing of doing live sound is an art form.
It is, and what's just come to mind now is an art form is also a type of intelligence. So let's take artificial intelligence, where the focus is on memory and processing speed. But now you have all these other forms of intelligence, from physical intelligence, athletes, IQs, all these different types of IQs. Now we bring that into the creative realm, and like you correctly have been saying, correctly in my opinion, you have to have a variety of skills. So those skills, obviously, you have to have a certain awareness of all these individual skills, being able to work with people, having the physical willingness to get down and dirty and actually carry the things, set up, climb on the rostrums, whatever. So it's a variety of skills. And once those skills are in place, then, only then does the creative process actually begin. I once, come to think of it now, my daughter was at school. She was probably grade 4. And one of her little schoolmates comes up to me. She looks me in the eyes and she says, "My daddy's a medical doctor, and he said all that sound engineers do is press, record, play." And I thought, oh, no. No.
No.
Especially nowadays, like you say. And it's busy evolving into something new. It's not just a certain amount of sort of group of skills that you need. You really need, and the teaching institutions, I think, should include that.
Yeah, we can talk for ages about the teaching institutions as well, and I'm wondering how it would fit in, because it's this overlap between the engineering sciences and the artistic sciences. I know through my studies in the humanities at the Odeon School of Music, I did part of it. And I know there are colleges out there that's dedicated to it, but I think the other difficult part of it, and that's why sound engineering is so multifaceted.
It is.
The other difficult part of it, you can't refine your skill if you don't practice it. That's where the artistic form comes in.
Very true.
I remember when I started with YouTube videos and an old JB Systems mixing console in my school hall, where I was in primary school around grade 6, grade 7. I just started playing around with the manipulation of sound, and a fader makes it go louder and softer, but not in equal increments, and all those stupid things.
Exactly.
And to the point where I kind of at some point faked my skills, like, I can mix a band.
Yeah.
I can mix a band mentally.
Just to almost purposely throw yourself in the deep end.
Exactly. And that was one of the biggest learning curves for me, and going further, learning how to work with classical instruments in a live environment, with different types of microphones and live sound gear, and then moving that to studio space a lot more forcefully than I initially wanted to, thanks to COVID. But just learning to work with all the gear and additional things, you need to practice working with it. You need to develop your ear. You need to develop your skill. And I think that's part of where the problem comes in with like the education system in that sense is it's difficult to optimize the systems for future sound engineers to actually learn to practically do these things in both in a live and studio setting. Just some of the limitations you had when you were teaching at Odeon back then was something as simple as you can't give us a melody line because it could lead to plagiarism or copyright infringement. And I mean, how do you do that then to mix any solo instrument or vocal? Because you can't give us a melody line. So that created difficulties. And then also in the live context, you can say, yeah, no, but there's performances that they can do live sound for or this and that. And the other part of this is people don't really want a trainee doing the sound, because that's the other part of the industry is it needs to be right from the get-go.
And they're investing in it, so they have a certain expectation.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, very often the people that are investing in that have a very... the expectation is perhaps not realistic due to their lack of knowledge within the field.
That's also the other thing.
So one has to also kind of train companies and that kind of thing who do employ sound engineers or whatever their function might be. Because it's very easy to say, just do the sound, I'm putting in the money, thanks. Or, you are very expensive.
Yeah, no, I've worked with producers in the music area, producers for like shows, not studio producers. I've worked with producers that uttered both those sentiments. It's just like, here's money, do the sound, and then complain the entire production through that the sound isn't right, but couldn't articulate what is wrong.
Lack of knowledge.
And on the other side, it's people that want these miracle things to happen with the sounds. Like, no, but the CD sounds like this. I'm like, okay, but we have like 20 musicians on stage, and it's a very live venue.
Why doesn't it sound like this live?
Exactly. So I think there is an education part that's also needed with that in the music industry. I think anybody involved in any area of the music industry needs, and that's just obviously me being a bit biased.
No, but I agree with you.
And
I really do.
People need to know what's happening with that. And I think coming from a more classical space, musicians especially need to just have a baseline understanding of what sound engineering is.
Behind the scenes.
Exactly.
All those little elements that take place.
Exactly.
And that are required to make the entire system work.
Yes, and my reasoning behind that is that the musicians train so long, so hard, and whether you're classical, rock, or whatever genre you find yourself in, as a musician, you train and work to get the sound that you want out there.
Yes.
Your product is the sound that you're putting out there, but then you completely lose control over it as soon as a sound engineer puts a microphone over your instrument.
Very true.
And if you don't understand what's happening in that process between the microphone and the loudspeakers, then you can't have a say about what the product is you're putting out there.
It would be great, with all due respect, to take a lot of teachers and lecturers and say, look, you guys are specialists in your field. Great, that's wonderful. And including myself, but we actually have to educate you in this. Just to bring about an understanding of what actually goes into the infrastructure.
John, thank you very much for having this
pleasure.
conversation. It was very nice to talk with you as always.
It's same here, vice versa. It's been very chilled.
I mean, it's your aura, it's your presence.
No, it's yours, Marlo.
We are chilled together.
We're chilled. We're chilling together.
I love it. Thanks, John.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for listening along today as me and John conversed about his life behind the scenes and the music that drives him forward. He has a massive heart and appreciation for music and just the people that makes the music and the artists that live out their craft. Join along every week as we talk with musicians, artists and singers, and remember to share, like and subscribe this episode. And remember, we have extra musical content every week with each artist.